Good evening, everyone, and everyone listening. This is Connie Lingus here with
Kind of Sick,
also known as Peter, here for another edition of 89.1, aka WNYU's very own category is Dragcast Extravaganza.
We're going Gregorian this week. Okay.
On this week's episode, we are talking season 11, episode 12 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Afterwards, we're going to introduce a new segment called Reading is Fundamental, where I'm going to be showcasing a book that is pertinent to the New York drag scene and just the drag scene as a whole. But before we get to there, let's talk the episode. There's no mini challenge to discuss this week. I guess they decided there's a big maxi challenge, so there's no fun to be had with our mini challenge. So, I mean, I'm glad that last mini challenge was the last one, because that was a good one. We just go into workroom shenanigans about the preparation for the maxi challenge, which was a song and a dance. They had to record a verse for a RuPaul song.
Thankfully, it was better than Drag Up Your Life. That isn't a very high standard, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and it was, I think, better, the one from season 10.
It was better than Say Amen, or Can I Get an Amen?
Yeah, but that's not a very high point.
They really aren't high standards.
Yeah, we'll talk about the verses individually in a little bit.
But we also got to see the Todrick Hall choreography. Now, we've spoken about this. I don't know if we've addressed this specifically before, but the hate for Todrick Hall is undying. People do not like him.
But I feel like reception to this episode was more positive about him. He seemed a lot nicer with the critiques, both like the dancing and the rap song. He was being a lot more constructive, not like, if you don't do this right the next time, you're a moron who's going home and you're gonna die. He felt a lot more like level-headed with his critiques this time around, which is nice to see. And I feel like the fans appreciated that.
I don't feel like that. I feel like quite a few recaps have been disliking it. I've heard from quite a few others that they still really don't like Todrick Hall, that they think he sets up queens for disaster.
How did he set up anyone for disaster this time around, though? He was completely constructive. And
well, I mean, I guess one of the points was when Vanjie was dancing and she's like looking pretty fierce, and he tells her, "Oh, look up straight ahead as if you're Beyonce," and then like she ends up messing it up on stage. That's what people are saying.
It's Vanjie's fault for not remembering the choreography.
I don't know a lot of recaps especially are disliking Todrick Hall, but that's kind of a constant.
Well, who cares?
They will dislike.
Who cares about our competition? People are gonna hate always on Todrick Hall, no matter what he does. So
that's their prerogative.
I will say, he's looking mighty fine with that facial hair. That's all I got to add about him. We'll play a clip here of Vanjie's recording session.
You're gonna have the death drop. This, Miss Vanjie.
I think that was like the best part of Vanjie's verse and the recording session.
Yeah, it was good.
It was fun. I kind of want to make that a ringtone. Just Vanjie gatting at me.
Vanjie was looking pretty good coming into this.
Yes, she was, and we'll talk about in a little how it didn't turn out that way, unfortunately. Surprisingly, I think. Also, amongst the workroom shenanigans, we got the now, I guess, tradition of inviting the queens onto Rue and Michelle's podcast. And for once, one of their sponsors was someone that's like A, known, and B, popular. Facetune. All the Instagram biddies are using Facetune. Also on the podcast, we got to learn a little bit more about the queens, and for once, it didn't feel like RuPaul was playing like armchair psychologist, it kind of felt like we were learning like interesting facts about the queens. Like we learned that Akira is a dad.
Yeah, that was whoa. I didn't know that. That's cool.
It was touching and cool. Afterwards, we got to hear Evie do her recording session. Evie, I feel, had the only standout verse.
Yeah.
And just in terms of, like, you could tell that she grew up like a rap kid, like, caring about it. And, like, she was telling about how she used to write, like, raps as a kid. So it definitely showed. And like, she had like, probably the most interesting delivery of all of them. Because everyone was very clearly like, I don't know how to rap, so let me just do.
It is worth noting, I've heard that in this segment, they kind of mess around with the tune that they put on the back. So, like, I've heard that when they're prepping there, they rap freestyle and the producers put the tune on. So if it feels a little out of sync, that could be intentional, but that's something I've heard.
Yeah, I could see that, just because if you notice, like, the beat tempo changes.
Yeah, it's just a different tempo
for each person. So, like, it makes sense that they're just adjusting the beat to whoever's rapping.
There was a lot of talk about Brangie, and the amount of talk that was in it made me a little suspicious of, hey, why are you bringing them up so much, huh?
Yeah, what happens was, like, the least surprising thing that
I was watching this
happened.
with my sister, and I called the ending the minute after the runway ended, and she was like, no, I don't believe you. And then it happened exactly like I predicted.
And I have some things to say about that. The whole critiques and everything afterwards was an abomination yet again of production. But we'll get there. We're going to play another clip here of something that bothers me, just reoccurring with Trodrick. I gave him praise, but I do have one thing to critique.
The emotion and the swag is all there, but I don't fully understand what words you're saying.
I think that Brooke's verse in the practice was kind of tough to understand.
I thought it was fine. Like,
but that's just during the practice. I'm not talking about what it ended up being.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what everything ended up being.
Yeah, but, like, I feel like Trodrick, like, throughout the seasons, anytime there's something about recording verses, he always, like, super, like, critiques, like, diction, even though I don't think it was
good. I mean, when you're singing, and this is coming from somebody who was a former singer, when you're singing, you have to be extremely clear about your diction. You need to emphasize T's where you normally wouldn't. You could hear the wouldn't right there because that's something that you need to add. You need to really pop your consonants. You need to pop your P's. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to sound like how you wouldn't normally be talking. But otherwise, people can't understand you. It's weird, but I understand the criticism, because if you aren't very clear with your diction while you're singing, to the point where it's painful to listen to if you're just talking that way, then I don't think you're doing it right. So I have no problem with that.
I agree with the sentiment. I just feel like what he was critiquing, like, it wasn't, like, I could understand them totally fine. But
they might be understandable, but that doesn't mean that it can't be improved.
Fair. Hearing about Vanjie's relationship with her mom was interesting, and how Vanjie's mom looks like 10 years older than Vanjie. I didn't know that Vanjie was Puerto Rican. I never, like...
Vanjie's mom appeared in one of the Untucked episodes, and it was also very touching.
Yeah,
her mom's a big fan of her, and that's cool.
Yeah. Is it weird that I didn't notice that she had a New York accent? That didn't sound like a New York accent to me.
It's New York-ish? There's no really other way to put it.
Yeah.
It's New York-ish. I mean, there are a lot of different kinds of New York accents. I've lived in Long Island all of my life, but I don't have an extremely strong accent. You certainly haven't picked up a New York accent in your time here. At least I don't think so.
Finally, one last clip from the episode.
Everybody knows Akira is not a dancer. I'm gonna have to rent some legs from somewhere because I don't know how the hell this is gonna go.
why send Scarlett home because she can't dance when Akira hasn't been able to dance all this time either?
Because Scarlett was sent home on the dancing challenge, and Akira wasn't ever in the bottom for dancing.
But
Although I don't think that it's like Akira can't dance. I think that she was doing fairly well. Don't get me wrong. The practice, she looked horrendous. But then in the actual performance,
She was fine.
good. So I think it's different. She might be thinking, I can't dance, but she was a very fast learner. If Scarlett was also a fast learner, then that would have been a different story.
that's fair. Maybe I'm just resentful that Scarlett got sent home so early because she didn't deserve
She
to.
will be back.
Yeah,
And that's all that matters.
that's true. All right, so let's just talk the Maxi Challenge now. Them just their songs and then doing the one take music video shtick that they did last
It's
season.
one take. You get one chance. You can't mess it up, guys. No messing it up.
No pressure.
No pressure, everyone. And then you got this result. And, I think that Akira was pretty good. She was good.
Yeah, Akira was fine though. So at first I was gonna I put down when I was watching her that oh, she wasn't lip syncing that great. But then
everybody
everyone
wasn't lip syncing that great because it was off. The song was off to the performance.
Yeah.
So I'm not blaming anyone for that.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a few that definitely weren't lip syncing that well, and we will talk about that.
Yeah.
But for Akira and Evie, it seemed to just be the song being off.
Yeah, for sure. It was so yeah. Akira was fine. Listen, Brooke did great, and the judges' critiques about her being too perfect are really dumb. You are too good. Be sloppier so you have more personality. She is a professional dancer. Like what do you want?
I think that her lip syncs weren't exactly intense, which is kind of what you wanted in this sort of video.
But
I even think that her lip syncs were a little bit off. She wasn't really emphasizing the whole sound with her lips. It might sound like a dumb critique, but if you look back at it, it really looks like she's kind of just letting the words slide instead of actually emphasizing the words. And I don't know. I don't really think that her performance stood out to me as much as the others. I don't think that it was ultra bad, but I don't think it stood out to me as much.
Okay, but I think she was physically flawless as you would expect, and her lip syncing was no worse than Vanjie's.
I agree there.
Or even Silky's.
No, I think that Silky's was better.
Oof.
But listen, I think that she was physically flawless, but this was not the time for the sort of flawless she was going for. Just because you're good at math doesn't mean you're going to get an A+ on the statistics test, because there's more to it than that. That was a bad analogy, but I mean, I'm standing by it.
Okay. Evie was a standout. She was on point with just her mannerisms.
Evie was great in general.
Just the physicality.
She was a very clear winner.
Yeah, for sure.
For this challenge.
But there wasn't a winner, so she doesn't have the extra win, so Brooke might be the front runner.
As far as we should all be concerned, this was a de facto win, because she was the very clear judge favorite.
Sure, but she's still not the win though.
Okay, as far as we're concerned, this is a second win.
Okay. I didn't like Silky. She was so awkward and clumsy. She had I guess some spirit to it. She said the words well.
I loved Silky. She had fun.
She had fun, but she
it was a good
was
performance.
Sloppy. No, it was
Yeah,
a
but
mess.
the whole point was that it was sloppy. That's how it was choreographed.
Yeah, but she was sloppy. Like Michelle pointed out, her underoos were showing. It was physically sloppy.
Yes, it was physically
It's
sloppy, but it fit.
No, it's a type of sloppiness that should not be the top 4.
Look, I don't think that
Silky is not top 4
I think it was
worthy.
better. Okay, well, I agree with that, but I think that she was worth this top 4 out of the 5 that we had here.
No, she should have lip synced against Vanjie. She should have lip synced against Vanjie.
We're going to disagree strongly there.
Again, The judges were like, Brooke, you did the routine perfectly and amazing, but you just didn't seem desperate enough.
But
Silky,
you were Silky was having fun. Silky
Yeah,
was showing
but they were
more
like-
of a
but the
personality
judges-
than Brooke was.
But what's it called? Literally, the judges were like, you're sloppy and bad,
I have
but your
praised-
personality is good.
Okay, well, I have praised Brooke for a personality in the past when she at first didn't have one and then she gained one, because a personality is so essential to your performance on this show. Brooke had this regal and royal personality that I have loved to see from her, and she wore it like a queen.
But-
she wore it like the queen that she was, but she didn't have that here. There was nothing regal and royal about it. She was just dainty, and dainty is not a personality. Silky had a personality in this, and they were looking for a personality in
The
a lip
same
sync.
personality that she's had off the whole season that she hasn't been clocked for, but
The same personality-
that Vanjie's been clocked for consistently.
Yes, the same personality is better than no personality, and Brooke did not have a personality this challenge.
If you say so.
I do.
Let's talk the runway. It was category is best drag. Worst category before we talk about the best man.
What does best drag mean?
Just what they think is the best represents them. The best aesthetic. I don't know.
If it's supposed to be my best outfit that best represents me, then, well, I'm gonna come even harder on Brooke then.
no.
Yes.
Brooke. Okay, my best was. Okay, do we agree that Evie's the best?
Evie's the best without a doubt.
Okay.
Let's start with there. Evie was absolutely the best.
Elegant and weird. It was
Elegant and weird is
like
a great way to put it.
Something that we haven't seen from her, but at the same time, something we
She
have.
had 3
seen.
breasts.
Yeah,
That
and
was-
3 eyes.
That was the breast performance yet. I'm not gonna keep on talking.
My best. I thought it was a bedazzled, bougie ballerina.
That was not one of the best. Come on. It was not a bedazzled bougie ballerina.
Okay.
It was a ballerina and nothing more.
No, it was bougie. She looked expensive and regal. She looked like
No,
Elsa.
no.
She looked like Elsa from Frozen.
Her
She looked-
delivery was not regal. Her
Yeah.
delivery was nothing Elsa.
Her delivery wasn't Elsa, but the aesthetic was. Her delivery was prim and proper. Brooke, it represents her perfectly.
Okay, no, her personality is royal, not prim and proper.
That-
there is a difference. There is
I
a
just think
distinction.
I a vague one at that.
It could not stand toe to toe with the others, as far as I'm
I
concerned.
disagree. I didn't have any worsts. I just had the rest were meh to me.
Vanjie was,
That was meh to me. It was just like a prom dress.
it was nothing.
It was a prom
It
dress.
was a nothing. As I was watching it with my sister's like, I could buy a better dress than that for my prom.
Yeah.
So
Vanjie, okay. So I could.
Silky was good. Silky's outfit was good.
But for me, it was just meh because both Silky and Akiri to me were business as usual.
Akiri was business as usual. Silky, as far as I'm concerned, was good. Don't get me wrong. It's a similar style that we've seen before, but she wore it better than I've seen her wear her past styles.
It was a nicer business as usual.
The hair was really good. Speaking of hair, can we note that Silky was wearing the red Ariel wig at one point earlier in
Yes,
the episode?
That's hilarious. That's just like a middle finger to Ariel.
Listen, I am not a big Silky Ganache fan, but I think that Silky Ganache did well in this episode. I think
disagree.
that the outfit was very good. I think that it was much better than both Brooke and Vanjie's outfit, for that matter.
I think maybe what irks me is when you frame it as you're moving on to the top 4, there is no one that clearly deserves it as much as it literally should have been. Evie said it first, and even despite her performance this week, Brooke decided. Like if you're gonna frame it like that, I feel like it should be a reflection on your performance the entire season. I know that they can't do that because it's supposed
That's not how this show works.
I know, but when you frame it as congratulations, you're moving on to the finals, that to me seems like reflective as overall performance, and overall performance, Silky did not deserve to be there.
You might feel like it was reflective on that. It wasn't reflective on that, though. It was just reflective on this episode. And if we're judging things based on this episode's performances, I think that all the judgments were fair. And I also think that Evie was, despite the fact that there was no official winner crowned, Evie is the de facto winner in most people's eyes. I think that if they had to crown a winner, it would be Evie without a doubt. She got the best praise.
Fair. There was a return to the advice to the youth segment, which is always, I think, one of my favorite parts of the season. It's always very touching to get that glimpse.
It's always really nice to see the younger pictures of all the queens.
Yeah, the baby pictures. Oh, Vanjie. Vanjie's picture was the cutest.
Vanjie's picture was great. I loved it.
And now we'll go to the lip sync. Vanjie versus Brooke. It just felt like it's so predictable, man.
I don't think that Brooke necessarily did better than Vanjie.
Yeah,
in this lip sync.
I don't.
I want to note something. Before anything happened, Rue specifically said, she doesn't usually make a point to say this, it will be my decision alone that decides what happens. This is important because it's saying if I decide that Vanjie's bad reputation in other episodes means that she's gone despite her performance in the lip sync, then that's my decision. Likewise, if I think that despite Brooke's consistency, she did very poorly in this lip sync, then sending her home is my decision as well.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with this, actually. She's being very transparent about the fact that I'm going to choose whatever I want because this is my show and I'm going to make the decisions. So, I don't mind the transparency there.
Sure. Yeah, I think the lip sync was honestly close. They could have.
It was close, and I don't know, it wasn't like anything that special.
Yeah, it was fine.
Brooke wasn't doing too hot in the beginning. I think that she was just kind of tiptoeing around like she did on the runway.
Yeah.
And then she actually did stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Vanjie
was resorting back to her kind of intense stare, fluttering herself at one point, but then she was kind of developing.
But I feel like Vanjie's performance overall worked for the song, and I feel like Vanjie overall was more consistent, but I think Brooke's highs in the second half of the lip sync were higher than Vanjie's.
I'll say this, if Brooke had gone home, we would have seen a very interesting final, because at that point it's tougher to decide who wins.
No,
because there's no clear front runner.
I disagree.
But I think you also have two people who are basically, you can't make these people in the finals. So
I think Evie is the clear front runner.
I would disagree. Evie had only won once beforehand.
Yeah,
this was only her second win. And she had been in the bottom quite a lot before. But then again, Akira has lip-synced twice. So it's worth noting both of those.
And I feel like she's had the least amount of growth. And Akira, I disagree.
I don't know if Evie's grown. I just think that Evie has been
consistently done her. I think it's kind of like a Sharon thing where Sharon was consistently doing her thing and Rue rewarded that by the end. Like, despite the fact that Chad did better like in that season than Sharon did, Sharon still won because of the originality and the personality. I think the same might be the same. It's either going to be Evie or Brooke.
Right. Well, Vanjie lost the lip sync. She made a fun exit.
That's probably
it was
the best
a good
departure
exit
on the show. I was laughing really hard.
She has set herself up for a potential return.
Yeah.
She could come back. It usually doesn't happen when you've already come back once, but you never know.
Not if you're Latrice.
I was going to say, not if you're Latrice Royale. You can still come back. So I'm looking forward to seeing new things from Vanjie. I think that she's heard a lot of criticism this season, and she'll take it to heart when she performs in the future.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what she does. But now we have the top four.
Yeah.
So we have Brooke, Silky, Evie, and Akira. Now, the only person I have a problem with being in this top four is Silky.
Yeah.
I think that it should be Nina instead.
Nina or Vanjie.
I would not have put Vanjie in the top four.
I would have been happier with Vanjie in the top. I think
comparatively speaking, maybe.
Yes, comparatively speaking is what I'm speaking here. But
I would have put many people before Vanjie in the top four. I would have put Sugar Cane in the top four before Vanjie, simply because I think that Vanjie's poor performances in the past and the amount of times where she should have been eliminated render her top four incapable.
So, we have a reunion episode this week. So,
I mean, we'll recap that, but what are we going to say? Oh boy, there's drama.
I don't know. We'll talk about it.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We will be there.
Yes. And with that is the episode of Drag Race. Now, let's do some reading. Because reading is fundamental. This week I want to spotlight a book that may be something of interest to y'all that are interested in the history of drag and especially drag culture in the 90s around the time that RuPaul was coming up. It's a book of photography and some essays called Voguing. Voguing in the house ballroom scene of New York City. The photographs are by Chantal Renault. I don't speak French, so thank you, Peter. With an introduction by Tim Lawrence, an author that's done some novels based on like the music and dance scene of that period. Basically, the book highlights, firstly with the introduction by Tim Lawrence, I think is phenomenal. It's a must read for those who are interested in kind of like a brief history on the proliferation of drag culture.
It's really important to recognize how drag culture reached this point, because we've seen drag at its highest point in the modern era. I'm sure that there were cultures that definitely used drag often. I mean, technically, if you want to go back to the Renaissance era, we had it in Shakespeare. But I think that we're seeing drag at its unprecedentedly high points this era, and it's really important to see where that started and how that started.
Though on that point, that this intro by Tim helps one to maybe question that notion if drag is truly at its best so far, because there it kind of sets up like the late 80s to early 90s of kind of being the peak for the drag and voguing scene. Voguing, if you're not aware as to what it is, it's kind of a style of dance. It's like popping poses to the beat of music.
It's Madonna.
Exactly. Madonna. Yeah, the introduction touches on the fact that Madonna pretty much was fascinated by the house ballroom scene and the drag scene and the type of dancing that was going on, and she actually got some like big names from some of the houses. The houses were like the different groups of people that would throw balls of different variety. Yeah, she enlisted them for the music video and their choreography. The introduction does a good stage setting for the photography that's shown in the book, and then afterwards just kind of where drag has been and where it's come from and where it's going. It's excellent read. And then the photography is also really, really fun. It's so interesting just to see how influential that era and time was for our current drag scene, just in terms of aesthetics and how like people look now. There's clear lineage. There's photos of actually a lot of big names from that scene. I was happy to see RuPaul's in a photo. Oh, RuPaul, I believe it's a picture from '89 of RuPaul, and it's so fascinating just to see how Ru's drag has evolved from then. Interspersed between the photos are interviews with some of the house leaders conducted by the photographer. So it's interesting to see a bunch of photographs of these balls that are hosted by these people that are being interviewed and just giving their perspective on how the scene has changed and whether or not they think it's better or worse now. And it's funny. A lot of them feel like things have changed for the worse in some regards. So yeah, with that, if you want to see a lot of diverse images of the scene back then, you want a good old history lesson on the drag scene, check out the book, which again is titled Voguing and the House Ballroom Scene of New York City. And with that is our episode. I am Connie Lingus, here with...
I'm still very sick. It's a problem. I've sickness. That's my name.
also known as Peter. Super special thank you to Miss Darling for their song Young Lovers, that is used. Where is it used, Peter?
in the intro and outro of this podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check us out on both WNYU's website and on Apple Podcasts for more episodes that we've already recorded.
Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening or day.
Adios.